Welcome, everyone. Good morning for those in the West, and good afternoon for those in the East. Welcome to meeting number 5 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Human Resources, Skills and Social Development and the Status of Persons with Disabilities. Pursuant to orders of reference on March 24th, April 11th, and April 20th, 2020, the committee is meeting for the purpose of receiving evidence concerning matters related to the government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. As you know, today's meeting is taking place by video conference. The proceedings will be made available by the House via the House of Commons website. The webcast will always show the person speaking rather than the entirety of the committee. In order to facilitate the work of our interpreters and ensure an orderly meeting, I would like to outline a few rules to follow. First, interpretation in this video conference will work very much like a regular committee meeting. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either Floor, English, or French. Before speaking, please wait and I will recognize you by name. When you are ready to speak, you can either click on the microphone icon to activate your mic, or you can hold down the space bar while you are speaking. When you release the bar, your mic will mute itself, just like a walkie-talkie, or like the mics that we're accustomed to when we're there in person. A reminder that all comments by members and witnesses should be addressed through the chair. Should members need to request the floor outside of their designated time for questions, they should activate their mic and state that they have a point of order. If a member wishes to intervene on a point of order that has been raised by another member, they should use the raise hand function. This will signal to me your interest to speak. In order to do so, you should click on Participants on the bottom of the screen. When the list pops up, you will see next to your name that you can click Raise Hand. When speaking, please speak slowly and clearly. When you are not speaking, your mic should be on mute. And as you've already heard, the use of headsets is strongly encouraged. If you have a microphone on your headset that hangs down, please make sure it's not rubbing on your shirt during your questioning time. Should any technical challenges arise, for example, in relation to interpretation or if you're accidentally disconnected, please advise the chair or clerk immediately and the technical team will resolve them. Please note that we may need to suspend during these times as we ensure all members are able to participate fully. So before we get started, can everyone click on their screen in the top right-hand corner to ensure that they're on gallery view? With this view, you should be able to see all the participants in a grid view, and it will ensure that all video participants can see one another. So with that, I believe that we are ready to begin. I'd like to welcome our first panel of witnesses. We have Graham Flack, the Deputy Minister, Laurie MacDonald, Senior Associate Deputy Minister of ESDC, and Chief Operating Officer for Service Canada. And finally, we have Benoit Robidoux, Associate Deputy Minister. We will proceed with the usual 10-minute period for the opening remarks, followed by rounds of questions. Will you be delivering the remarks, Mr. Flack?
I'd propose to waive the remarks to allow the committee more time to ask questions. Just a couple things I wanted to say in opening. First of all, on a very difficult week for those of us who are from Nova Scotia, I want to acknowledge how tough this has been on our families back home in terms of what we've been through. It's a Friday today at ESDC. We would call that day 40 of the week of March 16th. It's been quite a run that we've been through. And just maybe because I know members have often asked these questions, I would just give you the latest statistics on the CERB as of last night. There are 7.12 million Canadians who have applied for the CERB. That's over 1/3 of Canada's labour force. $22.38 billion in benefits have been paid out. Because some people are now in their second cycle, there are a total of 9.65 million individual claims that have been made, and 9.51 of those 9.65 million claims have already been paid. Alors, je serais bien content de recevoir.
I'll be happy to answer your questions. So I will stop there so that you can ask questions.
Merci, Monsieur
Thank you, Mr. Flack.
Proceed with the rounds of questions, beginning with the Conservatives. And I understand Ms. Doncho is going to lead off. Welcome to the committee. The floor is yours for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the department officials for being on the call today to answer some of our important questions. I just wanted to start with some concerns that I had regarding a recent call hosted by the Parliamentary Secretary for the Minister of Employment and a number of other Liberal parliamentary secretaries. Yesterday, they sent out a notice that MPs were allowed to ask questions on an official call with officials on the call, which was going to be a great opportunity for members of the opposition to question on the new $9 billion announcement for student supports that was made the day prior. So we were quite eager as opposition members to do this. You know, unfortunately, though, I was on the call for over about an hour, and the NDP and Green members were given 2 to 3 rounds each MP to ask questions. And in fact, the NDP staffer was given 2 rounds of questions, and yet not a single Conservative MP was called on to ask any questions. And now this is quite alarming to me. I was very prepared to ask questions, particularly considering 2 weeks prior we had another one of these calls, and I was not called on in that call either. And even more worrisome was the Parliamentary Secretary for Employment was informed the day before that I would be leading the questions for the Conservatives. So I'm just wondering if the officials can comment on the viability of a virtual parliament if opposition members are not able to do their jobs and ask questions.
I think that would be something that we would consider out of our scope as officials to comment on. We are here to answer your questions, and I'm happy to say that Benoit Robidoux is on the line. Benoit has actually spearheaded our work around the student benefit, and would be happy, if the honourable member wished, to walk you through the details of the benefit and answer any questions you have. So how did you want Benoit to do an overview first, or did you want to proceed to detailed questions? He could do a short overview if that would help.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great to be able to ask those questions, but I just wanted to flag for you again, just to underline the importance that if we're going to be doing this virtual parliament and the opposition Conservatives have raised this concern that the technology or what have you is just not allowing us to do our job. So I was quite alarmed that even though they were informed, they didn't call on me once, and in fact gave a staffer more opportunity than the member of Parliament. And it's great for my NDP and Green colleagues. I'm glad they got to ask questions, but I'm sure they would agree that the Conservatives deserve that opportunity as well. So just really want to flag that for officials. I know you're all working very hard to provide these services, but it was very concerning to me. So if they can comment specifically on a couple of the things about the program, could they define national service? Would they be able to define what that means?
Benoit, do you want to jump in?
I'm not sure I understood correctly the question. I heard CERB, but and nationally, but could you repeat the question, please?
Sure. So in your government's announcement regarding the Canada Student Service Grant, it mentions that it will help gain valuable work experience and skills for young people to help in their communities, for students who choose to do national service and serve their communities. The new student grant will provide up to $5,000 for their education. What is national service? How is that defined? Does that go by province for essential services, or who is deciding which volunteer opportunities are national service, which ones get the go-ahead, which don't? How is that going to be determined for this grant?
Mr. Chair, that's a very good question. We, in fact, as we speak, designing this new program, and it will be axed on it will be directed toward, as you just said, national services and volunteering. Again, what was decided is the reward will be up to 5,000, but could be lower too. But all that remain to be designed and to be set up. And again, we believe we could use a platform that we will launch, which we call I Want to Help, to connect non-for-profit organization with you that want to volunteer to create that matching and to create that program. But to be honest, many of the details need to be defined. And to your question, I think we'll have to wait a bit more to get into the level of details you were asking.
When can we anticipate that this legislation will be tabled?
It will not be legislation. It will be a grant program. But the details.
Sorry, I meant the legislation with the $1,250 monthly grant. Sorry, I'm jumping around a bit. But the other part of the announcement that does require legislation, when will that be available for parliamentarians to scrutinize and to ask questions on?
It's hard for me to tell you when exactly. We're working on it. I work on it all morning. I will work on it after this call, and it will be available as soon as possible. I could tell you we're working.
I can understand.
On the
I know you're
double
working
to have it as soon as possible.
Yeah, but as you know, students have been waiting for over 6 weeks now, and the official opposition students have raised their arm. We've written, I personally, myself and Dan Albus, a number of others have written 2 letters to Minister Qualtrough about services for students and have not received a single response from the minister. So you can understand the people that we represent, particularly me in my position, the Shadow Minister for Diversity, Inclusion and Youth for all Canadians. Students are counting on us to get these answers, and we're just not receiving any of those details. So I need a little bit more from you regarding even an approximate timeline.
So we can give you a couple answers that could help. The first is that based on labor force survey data, 43% of Canadian students, of the slightly over 2 million students in Canada over 15 with income over $5,000, 43% of Canadian students would have been working in February. So a very significant portion of post-secondary students are eligible for the CERB and are indeed applying for the CERB because they would have ceased working as a result of things related to COVID.
Yeah, we recognize that. Yeah.
Second point is with regard to the new benefit that we're putting in place, the government has made a commitment that it will be retroactive to May 1st. This is not unlike the launch of the CERB itself. These benefits are being launched in record time, but we want to ensure that the launch date is not tied to when people can actually get the resources retroactive to. So it will be retroactive to May 1st, but it will take us weeks, and Minister Qualtrough is pushing us hard towards a mid-May launch.
That's great.
Thank you, Mr. Flack. Thank you, Ms. Doncho. That's your time. Next, we have Ms. Young. For 6 minutes, please.
Hello. Okay. I'm trying to unmute.
You're good. Okay. Floor is yours.
I'm good. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair, and it's great seeing everyone virtually for this very important discussion. I first wanted to thank our officials for joining us today and for all the public servants who are working so hard over the past number of weeks to get these programs up and running. It's quite remarkable what has been accomplished. So thank you for that. My question is actually about calls that I've received in my constituency from expectant mothers who have contacted us about the status of their maternity benefits, if they are currently receiving the CERB. So some were planning on going on mat leave in June, others in September, and they've been told by Service Canada representatives if they go on CERB, they will be ineligible for their earned benefits unless they have an additional 600 hours banked before they take mat leave, which isn't possible. Can you clarify this for the committee? Thank you.
So in terms of maternity leave and other special leave, those benefits continue as they were originally structured. That is the required numbers of hours, and they operate within the current EI system as it currently operates. What the government has signaled is if there are individuals who are already on maternity leave, for example, and come off of maternity leave during the period when the COVID benefit, the CERB benefit is in place, they would be eligible for the CERB. But if an individual does not have enough hours, under the currently structured rules of EI, they still need to receive sufficient hours in order to qualify for the benefit, but that is something Minister Qualtrough has said she is looking at.
Yes, thank you. I think it's pretty apparent that there is just no way that many of these women can actually get the hours. So it's important that we find a way around this, and it's important to keep refining these programs, and I appreciate your hard work. I'd like to share my time, if that's okay, with my colleague Han Dong, who is, I think, on the line. I'm hoping that he will be able to ask a question with the remaining time that I have.
Well, thank you very much, Kate.
Just hang on a second, Han. Thank you, Ms. Young. I see that Mr. Vaughn has raised his hand. Did you have a point of order, or did you just hit the wrong button there, Mr. Vaughn?
It was just in response to the concerns about parliamentary secretary and critic calls and the order of speaking. We're all feeling in the dark on this one, and Zoom etiquette or group etiquette sometimes isn't always well explained or well executed. I want to apologize, first of all, to MP Dencho for not having her recognized or given opportunities to question. Those questions come in on a raised hand basis. We don't assign questions to people, but in the future we'll be very attentive to the fact to make sure that we recanvass to make sure there are no unanswered questions. And I apologize on the issue of an NDP staffer sitting in for a parliamentary individual. That I believe the individual question was on another committee, couldn't be at two places at the same time, and so we allow for those sorts of accommodations in the same way that we have a member of the Green Party here today who's asked to speak, and I hope we can find ways to, in these extraordinary times, include as many voices and questions to make sure Canadians from all corners of the country are served. And I think that we can hopefully find a way to be courteous and extend those privileges. I don't think they should be extended to staff members necessarily, but I do believe in a committee setting like this where we have visitors, being as generous as we can is something that serves all of us and all of our constituents in the best way possible.
Over to you, Mr. Dong.
The time, and good morning or good afternoon to my colleagues on the committee, and I want to thank the staff for coming on today's call and answering some questions. I want to ask a question about international students. We all know the contribution they're making to our economy and our institutions.
Sorry for interrupting, Mr. Dong. I see Ms. Cusey has her hand up. Is that on a point of order, Ms. Cusey?
Mute now. Yes, it is, Chair. I just wanted to just ensure that Ms. Dancho was getting the responses that she needed. So I just appreciate the parliamentary secretary jumping in to address that. That's all. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Dong.
Okay, so my question is on international students. We know the contribution they're making to our economy and our institutions. And in my riding, in Seneca College, 200 students have stepped forward to join the frontline health workers, and the majority of them are international students. Now, I want to applaud the government for their decision on exempting international students with border closure and including them in the CERB. But in the recent announcement of CESV, I noticed that they're the only group that weren't included. I would like some explanation on the inconsistency on these policy making. And also, my second follow-up question was going to be that if the government or the ministry is considering doing something to support international students who has been affected by COVID-19. Thank you.
I guess I could take this one. It's Honorable speaking. So you're right that they are eligible international students that are in Canada to the CERB, and they will not be, as of now, based on the design to the Canada Emergency Student Benefit. I have to say there's also other difference between the two benefits. For example, Canadians abroad would not be eligible to the CERB, but Canadian students studying abroad will be eligible to the Canada Emergency Student Benefit. So there's that kind of misalignment between the two. And again, the intent here was to cover all Canadian students, including those abroad, but the decision has been taken not to cover international students that are studying in Canada. If other countries do the same, then obviously they would be covered indirectly. And as you mentioned, the government has allowed them to work more than 20 hours in ancestral services sectors, so that's a plus for them for sure. But you're right about the fact that they are not at this point eligible to the benefit.
Thank you, Mr. Dong. Suite, nous avons Madame Chabot.
And now, Ms. Chabot, you have 6 minutes. The floor is yours. Hello. For Nova Scotia, we are all very saddened by the recent events, and we are alongside the people of Nova Scotia at this time. I would like to touch on the statistics that you gave for the CERB. Since the beginning of this crisis, even if that was not so long ago, 7.1 million claims were filed. And as for workers that were impacted by this situation, the numbers are even higher. A third of workers were affected. By creating the CERB, of which the scope was widened because a lot of workers weren't covered, I think that we managed to help a significant part of Canadians, of workers, namely workers that were not eligible for employment insurance. So I think that's a good thing. But we know that these benefits are finite. They won't last forever. And the CERB and employment insurance were kind of put together. There will be an after. I think that we should start anticipating that this situation won't be resolved anytime soon, that there will be job losses that will be permanent. So how do you think that what do you think the future will look like? Because we know that the employment insurance plan had to be reassessed and redesigned all in all before this crisis even happened, because this program had not been reviewed for years. So is this still a priority for you? Is this still something that you will want to do once this crisis is over? Because now we see that a robust employment insurance program is very important in a situation of crisis. And the CERB already is showing some failings.
No.
If I may, I'd like to ask one more question. Ms. Young, you talked about maternity benefits. I'm wondering whether you are looking at that more closely for seasonal workers. The CERB was made more flexible so they can be admissible to it as well, since they will start work much later. But in the meantime, people will be wondering whether in the fall, some sectors will still be dead, so to speak. What will happen to the number of weeks for which applicants are still eligible for the CERB and or EI benefits. Thank you for those questions. If I may, I will answer the second question first. It is true that we've made changes to allow seasonal workers and all workers who were not on EI, so who are without work as of December 29 or whose EI benefits would end in the next weeks. All these workers will be eligible for the CERB, as you mentioned in your question. It's also true that it's legitimate to ask the question about what comes next. What comes next for these people who were not able to work during the summer and so who cannot accumulate the time needed to qualify for EI benefits? What will we do then? Well, the government is looking at that very issue right now. Now, to address your first question, we are working in parallel in 3 phases. First phase is to manage this crisis right now. The numbers coming in are jaw-dropping. So many people are in the EI system now. We've had volumes 30 times higher than the daily average every day. And just to give you an idea of the scale, we've had some days where in the EI system we received over 200,000 claims per day. Yesterday, we were up to 26,000. That's a huge number. But it slowed down a lot over the last week, so you might be interested in those numbers. Now, the first phase was to ensure everybody got the same benefit just to be able to deal with this avalanche of applications. It's unprecedented in our history. Second phase, well, we hope that the economy will recover so people can go back to work. However, at that phase, in phase 2, some people who still would have been on EI, but we have to find a way to get them back into the system. That won't be easy, especially if millions of people are still in the EI system. So we're working on that issue as well. Phase 3. And again, this is all happening at the same time. We are looking at potentially making changes to our approach in how we help people in difficulty. Thank you very much, Mr. Flack and Ms. Chabot. We will now move to Ms. Kwan.
You just need to
Can
unmute.
you hear me?
There you go. We can now. Ms. Kwan, go ahead, please.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. And thank you to all the officials for your work and for being here today. It remains that from my perspective, the CERB program and the other programs for that matter is complicated. We have to go through a process of determining whether or not a person is qualified. If the government had adopted what the NDP had proposed, which is a universal direct payment, we wouldn't actually be in a situation where a whole bunch of people are left out and stuck. So to that end, I would like to ask this question. I have a number of constituents in a different set of scenarios. One had to leave their work voluntarily. They had to actually quit because they were experiencing harassment. And as a result, for quitting, they're not qualified for CERB. Another situation, I had another constituent who had to quit their work because they actually had flu-like symptoms. Now, he was never tested for COVID, but he had flu-like symptoms and he was worried. His employer would not give him sick leave, and he had no choice but to leave work because he was worried that he would potentially infect others. I have endless situations like this, and everybody caught up in that situation are worried that if they apply for CERB, that somehow they might be penalized down the road because on the government's requirements, you cannot apply for CERB and be eligible if you have actually quit your job. So to the officials on this question, is the government working to fix this issue so that people can, in fact, under those circumstances, still be able to apply and be qualified without penalty?
So you're right that as with the employment insurance system, there is a condition in the CERB that parallels the EI system, which is that an individual can't quit their job without cause and receive the benefit. So this isn't a change. This is a continuation of the normal practice we have in place. Under the EI system, we do have a redress mechanism because there could be cases where an individual quit, and you gave examples of them. Let's say where the individual was facing harassment, where under the redress system, we will allow the EI claim if the individual quit for justifiable reasons. And so for people applying through the EI system, for CERB through the EI system, we do have a redress mechanism that we can use to be able to assess the sort of cases that you're talking about in terms of whether it would be permitted.
You know the problem with that, though, and that is that, in fact, in the case of the person faced with harassment, they're in the system being assessed, and in the meantime, there's been no income, and they're desperate. They're in a desperate situation to get support. And so, yes, there's a redress process which takes time. And so people are still kind of caught out. I have another scenario of a constituent on the issue around maternity leave. She was 23 weeks pregnant, 17 weeks before she would go on maternity leave. So after waiting for weeks for her EI application, she called the EI agent and was told that she would receive half of the 2,000 CERB amount. And when she questioned this, the agent said, quote, "No mistake, you are pregnant," end quote, and then was told that there was a clause in CERB stating that if you receive maternity benefits, you are not eligible and would be put on regular EI. And then at the time when she called and when she made the application, she would not be receiving EI for another 12 weeks. So this individual is out right now without support. I mean, so we have problems within the system, and with all of these kinds of problems, I'm not the only MP, I'm pretty sure, who received these examples and challenges. We're asked to provide answers to which we cannot. And so I don't know what the government is doing to fix these kinds of issues for people who are in a dire situation right now and who need assistance and could not get it.
Thank you for the question. So as I indicated in response to an earlier question, if an individual has not received enough hours to qualify for maternity leave, those special benefits, maternity leave, compassionate care leave, and other leave, continue under the current EI system, although the government has indicated it's looking at what it could do to change that. In terms of the specific cases you've raised, we're happy to look into them. There are cases similar to that we've heard about. We are working on workarounds within the system to allow us to expeditiously process those cases for the individuals who are caught between the two systems. So we have redeployed 3,000 additional processing agents towards these efforts. They had put all of their efforts into getting new people into claim at the front end and are now working hard to get to these other cases that you're talking about.
So for the purposes of MP
Mr. Viss, excuse me, Ms. Kwan, Mr. Viss, on a point of order, you'll have another minute when he's done. Mr. Viss, please.
Who have lost their job. This is my digital way of just showing support for MP Kwan and the questions she's raising for the expectant mothers who have been contacting my office at large to who are falling between the cracks. Thank you.
Yeah, you have another minute, Ms. Kwan.
Oh, thank you very much. On this issue, is there a number or contact to which it can be provided to the committee chair so that we can all receive it? Because we have the general MP numbers to call. And I got to tell you, it's like winning a lottery for my office, for my staff, phoning that number if you can get a call in a timely fashion. I want to move on to another area for the CESB. Will CESB be excluded from income threshold calculations for the RAP or the RAP PD? And likewise, the government announced that they will double the grant assistance for the coming 2020-2021 year. And will CESB or CERB be excluded from the income calculation for grant assistance?
Benoit?
Yes, they will.
On the question for people who are engaged in a immigration process, often the issues tied to their income. If they receive the CESB, will they be penalized for the immigration process, or would that be exempt?
Quick answer, please.
I'm not in position really to answer your question on the immigration process. This is not in my zone of responsibility of the department. I think we have to redirect this question to immigration department.
Thank you, Mr. Robidoux. Thank you, colleagues. We are expecting Minister Qualtrough in 8 minutes. I would suggest that we suspend to allow her to get situated, and we'll be back to you shortly with the Minister. Thanks, everyone. raised his hand. And Mr. Viss, if you raised your hand before we suspended, I apologize. I only saw it after we suspended, but if you have a point of order, please go ahead.
Belabor the point. Can you hear me?
We can now.
I won't belabor the point, but there were a number of members of the committee that would have really appreciated just even one quick question to the officials, and I would endeavor for this committee. I would hope that this committee can use all of the time allotted to us, even for just a quick round. And I would ask the chair to consider such flexibility moving forward. Thank you so much.
An entirely fair request, and I'm sorry for not noticing your hand ahead of time. Had I done so, I absolutely would have exercised my discretion to do that, and will in future. So thanks for raising it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, we're pleased to welcome the Honourable Carla Qualtrough, Minister of Employment, Workforce Development, and Disability Inclusion. Minister, a 10-minute opening statement, followed by questions. Welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you all to committee members for being here. I'm pleased to be able to join you today to give you an update on measures taken to address the COVID-19 pandemic as they pertain to my portfolio. Thank you as well for permitting me to participate by telephone. I've been having some challenges integrating my accessibility software with virtual meeting software, which means I can't always read what's on my screen when I'm also on a meeting, which is sometimes doable, but not when I need to also manage documents and want to participate meaningfully. So thank you very much. I'm accompanied here today by ESDC officials that you've already been hearing from. I understand Graham, Laurie, and Benoit are with us. Avant de commencer, j'aimerais remercier le
Before we begin, I'd like to thank the committee for his study on the government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Your work is essential in our democratic process.
It's been some time now that Canadians have been adapting to the COVID-19 pandemic gripping our country and the world. During that time, Service Canada and CRA employees have expended a monumental effort to respond to this crisis. To give you a sense of the scope of this effort, we need to look no further than the $13.4 million payments made to date under EI and the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. This figure is a reflection of the real need of Canadians during this time and our staff's dedication to public service and to our country. Permettez-moi de vous en dire un peu.
Allow me to speak a little more to the CERB. The Canada Emergency Response Benefit was created to help Canadians in unprecedented circumstances. And in reality, our EI system was not designed to respond to a world pandemic. Our EI system does not cover all of the situations which workers are facing in this public health crisis. Service Canada and the Canada Revenue Agency therefore got together, and within a couple of weeks, they developed and implemented a simple and rapid approach, and they are now quickly and efficiently paying out the Canada Emergency Response Benefit to Canadians every day.
For eligible Canadian workers, the CERB provides temporary income support of $500 a week for up to 16 weeks. It applies to workers who have stopped working for reasons related to COVID-19. It also supports working parents who are staying home to care for children because of school and daycare closures. However, when we launched the benefit on April 6th, some Canadian workers expressed concern about eligibility. We listened, and on April 15th, made it more inclusive. Now, workers, including self-employed, can earn up to $1,000 per month while collecting the benefit. The benefit now also applies to workers who've recently exhausted their EI regular benefit payments and are unable to start working again because of COVID-19. This helps many seasonal workers, including fishers and those in the tourism industry, who may not have had their usual seasonal work to return to as a result of the COVID-19 outbreak. I understand that some Canadian workers who are eligible for the CERB and who are going on maternity leave in a few weeks or months have questions with regards to how their claims have been processed. We're in the process of reconciling these cases, and we'll make sure that no one is disadvantaged and that everyone has access to their proper maternity benefit entitlements when they need it. Before going on, I'll quickly share the latest CERB numbers. As of April 23rd, we've received 9.65 million applications from 7.12 million people. We've processed 9.51 million of these applications, which by my math equals about 98.5% of applications having been processed. The total amount of payments made is $22.4 billion. I mentioned seasonal workers, and I'd like now to speak about temporary foreign workers in Canada's food supply. Temporary foreign workers have been integral to Canada's food production since the 1960s. For example, last year, approximately 60,000 temporary foreign workers came to Canada to work at agriculture and food processing jobs. But the COVID-19 pandemic has made it harder to bring in the workers needed to meet Canada's food security needs. In response, we've implemented emergency changes to the temporary foreign worker program to make it easier and faster for employers to hire and retain these workers. In the meantime, we're also working closely with provinces and territories, employers, foreign governments, and other stakeholders to safeguard the health of workers and of all Canadians. This includes regulatory amendments, which came into force on April 20th, and which are now being enforced through inspections by Service Canada compliance officers. Il est également vrai que même si les
It's also true that even though temporary foreign workers are an integral part of our economy, many Canadians today are out of work. So I would like to reassure committee members that there are still jobs for Canadians who want to work in the agricultural and agri-food sectors. We are currently working with our partners to find ways to better communicate these job opportunities to Canadians.
How about students and youth? Our government is committed to providing targeted support for individuals and vulnerable groups, such as students. That's why we announced comprehensive support for post-secondary students and recent graduates, representing an investment of approximately $9 billion. Young people are facing a serious set of challenges in this difficult time, be it uninterrupted studies, reduced work opportunities, or disruptions to summer co-op or internship plans. Many of Canada's post-secondary students are worried about how they'll be able to afford tuition, food, and rent if they can't find summer work. That's why our government is introducing a 4-month Canada Emergency Student Benefit. Students who are not eligible for the CERB and meet the criteria for this new benefit will be able to apply to receive $1,250 per month between May and August. Students with disabilities and students with dependents could receive an additional $500 per month. This benefit is designed to reach the vast majority of existing and newly graduated post-secondary students. In addition, we're expanding eligibility for the Canada Student Loan Program for September. We're also doubling the value of Canada Student Grants and increasing the cap on Canada Student Loans from $210 to $350 per week of study. Je comprends que de nombreux jeunes
I understand that many young Canadians are anxious with regard to their job prospects this year and that they'll be looking for work in safe and secure work environments. So the temporary changes we've recently announced to the Summer Jobs Program are only the beginning.
We announced that we will expand existing federal employment programs to help students to create up to 76,000 jobs, placements, and other training opportunities to help students find employment and develop valuable skills this summer and over the coming months. This includes expanding the student work placement program by creating more paid-to-work placements across critical service sectors like healthcare, food and agri-food, retail, and e-commerce. We're also introducing flexibilities to the Youth Employment and Skills Strategy, creating placements for young Canadians in critical sectors such as community service. And we're investing in bringing important wraparound services online through the Support for Student Learning program, services like mentoring and tutoring for vulnerable young people to make sure that they are not further marginalized by COVID-19. We believe that these measures and others made as part of Canada's COVID-19 economic response plan will help young people weather the negative economic impacts of the pandemic while ensuring their health and safety. Finally, I'd like to speak about what our government is doing to address the concerns of persons with disabilities during this pandemic. We recognize that some groups are significantly and disproportionately impacted by this crisis. For some Canadians with disabilities, underlying medical conditions put them at greater risk of serious complications related to COVID-19. Others face discrimination and barriers in accessing information, social services, and healthcare. On April 10th, I released a statement outlining our government's unequivocal commitment to the rights of every citizen and the value of every life, including the right to equal access to medical treatment and care. This is in keeping with our commitment to nothing without us and in line with the principles and objectives of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and the Accessible Canada Act. In addition, in this same spirit and to support Canadians with disabilities, we established the COVID-19 Disability Advisory Group. This group is offering advice to the government on real-time lived experiences of persons with disabilities during this crisis. Areas of particular focus are on the equality of access to health care and support, access to information and communications, mental health and social isolation, and employment and income support. Mes collègues du cabinet et moi.
My cabinet colleagues and myself are willing to take other measures to protect Canadians and the economy. And this means continuing to support workers and businesses now and during the eventual transition towards the normal functioning of the economy as soon as that happens.
I'll be happy to take your questions.
Much, Minister. I see Mr. Turnbull has his hand up. Is that a point of order, Mr. Turnbull?
Just a small technical request. I know that we experienced this on the other committee that I'm on as well when the translation and interpretation is happening. The volume is still high when the person is speaking, and it's often hard to actually hear. I think if I could just humbly request that maybe the interpretation be louder than the speaker's voice at the time that translation is coming through. I think it would improve the quality for all of us to hear when we're speaking about accessibility. And I just think it's important that we make sure everyone can hear clearly. And thank you, Minister, for your comments and opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Turnbull, and thank you, Minister. We'll now proceed with questions, beginning with the Conservatives. I believe it's Mr. Albus for 6 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presence, Minister. Minister, since mid-March, Conservatives such as myself and other shadow ministers have sent you 6 letters, and it seems that we are getting 0 responses. Is this how you want to conduct your office?
Well, I thank you for the question, and I know that you have sent numerous letters over the past weeks, and as things are moving and changing very rapidly, I know that we've made effort, including I know my parliamentary secretary has been offering personal telephone conversations with you to capture your input. We've had 2 committees of the whole where we were both there personally. There have been opportunities to ask questions through tech briefings through my department. There's certainly been no intended effort not to respond. I know there's a daily parliamentary call at 4:30 where we gather information. I think my team is really well equipped to answer questions.
Minister, just on this, I only have so much time, so I'd like you just to answer the question at the time that's given. Minister, your parliamentary secretary has not. I'm still waiting for the questions were asked 3 teleconferences ago on the technical briefing for answers. So this is not happening. And let me just say this. Number one, I hope that you believe there's an ethical argument to be made that you have to be responsible to Parliament. There's also a practical argument. If you're not sending me timely inquiries, then what will happen is I will tell every Conservative MP to then ask your department their own questions. That will make it inefficient for your office and for mine. I just want your commitment right now for answers in a timely basis. Yes or no?
You do have that commitment, absolutely, and I apologize because I thought we were getting you timely information. That will be remedied immediately.
Thank you. Minister, expectant parents are being told by Service Canada they can't access the CERB. Instead, they must apply for early parental leaves instead. They are being told that this is a requirement in the CERB. Is this a requirement in your understanding?
I apologize, Mr. Albus. The operator said I was muted and I missed the middle part of your question. Can you please ask it again?
Sure. So expectant parents who are applying for the CERB are being told that they must apply for early parental benefits instead. They are being told this is a requirement. Is this a requirement, Minister?
This is absolutely not a requirement. Mothers who are expecting and who are eligible for the CRB can receive the benefit even if they expect to start maternity benefits at some point. And so, no, that is not a requirement.
It says right here in a letter that this committee has received from a Canadian. There is a little question on the application for EI CERB application that asks, quote, "Are you pregnant?" Of course, I checked the yes box. I am pregnant. Am I worth less as a worker because I'm pregnant? This is.
Oh, I can tell you why that question is asked, Mr. Elvis, if you'd like. I can tell you that we ask that question so that we can anticipate from a back-end system point of view if somebody is going to be moved on to a different benefit stream. But that does not in any way impact their eligibility for all of these benefits. And as I said in my opening remarks, I know that we've had some systemic challenges, but I will reiterate my assurance, as I did, that nobody is going to be disadvantaged by anything that may or may not be happening. And pregnant women.
In the letter as well, Minister.
Excuse me, Mr. Albus. Ms. Cusey on a point of order.
Excuse me. Mr. Chair, I have the time, and I appreciate I only have a brief amount of time with the Minister.
One of your colleagues has raised a point of order, Mr. Albus. Ms. Cusey?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, please, if Mr. Albus could have 20 seconds added to his time, please, considering he had to repeat the question as a result of the technical difficulty with the minister. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Albus.
Yeah, so in the same letter, Minister, it says right here that she went to a representative and he said to her, there is a clause in the CERB that states if you will be receiving maternity benefits, you are not eligible for the $2,000 a month and will be put immediately on regular EI benefits. Minister, you're telling us one thing and your officials at Service Canada are telling constituents differently. Did you apply a gender-based, Minister, I'm not done. Did you apply a gender-based analysis plus on the CERB? And are you determined that you're going to fix this sooner than later?
Well, we're absolutely determined that this will be fixed for sure. But let me say that I understand from what that letter is saying that when somebody can't be on both maternity benefits and the CERB, but you are eligible for both, and you can sequentially be on CERB and then flip to maternity benefits.
We are also getting other reports, Minister, where people are being told they have to take their maternity early and that do not qualify for CRB. Okay, so I've asked.
Well, that should not be the case, and you have my commitment to make sure that isn't the case.
Minister, in the House on April 11th, you said in order to change the criteria to include groups of individuals who are not working but have not stopped working, legislative changes would be required. Now, a few days later, you announced that people who hadn't lost their jobs would be covered without a legislative change. I've asked repeatedly your office for an explanation, and I've gotten zero response. How are you covering people who didn't lose their job to COVID when the eligibility criteria in the legislation we passed clearly states its requirement?
Well, thanks for that question. It's very important. I tried clearly to make the distinction in the House last Saturday between changes that some changes would require legislation and some could be done through regulation. Changing the language of ceased working to not working would require legislative change, but there are changes that we could make by regulation. So after that time, we went and got a legal opinion and were advised that we could do this particular change through a broad interpretation of the law, which I'm happy to walk you through. We are in an emergency situation. We found a way to do what was being asked of us by Canadians and by the opposition. We're giving Canadians more support, and we are confident that we had the authority. So the legislation...
Minister, a legal opinion, Minister, is just a legal opinion until it's checked by a court. I mean, we shouldn't have to have the Standing Joint Committee of the Scrutiny of Regulations to determine whether or not you're in violation. I do hope you take up that if you need legislative changes, that you take it up at the next opportunity. Now, in this announcement, your government said that seasonal workers would not be covered by the CERB, except that is not really...
Thank you, Mr. Albus. That's your time. You're over by a minute.
I will respect the chair, and I hopefully get another round.
You will indeed. Mr. Long, please, for the Liberals, for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon from sunny St. John, Rossay, to all my colleagues and my friends. It's wonderful to be back on HUMA and wonderful to see everybody again. First off, Minister, I want to thank you for coming on to HUMA today and answering our questions. And I sincerely want to thank you on behalf of my constituents, St. John Ross, for our government, for your department's rollout, in particular on CERB. Obviously there are those naysayers, Minister, who would say, the program's been rushed and poorly thought out. I've never seen a program that has been this extraordinary to get money out to Canadians so quickly, so seamlessly in, really a crisis of a generation. So I want to thank you first and foremost for CERB. I think certainly when I heard about the Canada Emergency Response Benefit and CERB, I didn't realize I'd certainly be referring to it and dreaming about it every night. But Minister, there are still some things that we need to talk about. We need to fine tune and tweak some things. So my question to you, Minister, my first question is just about the disincentive to work with respect to CERB. I've certainly had some employers in my riding who are starting to ramp back up. I thank God that New Brunswick is leading the country right now with respect to we're in our sixth straight day of no cases. And, we're starting to ramp forward. But we have some employers in the riding that are starting to talk to their employees about coming back. And unfortunately, they've been dealt with some employees saying, well, I'm still on CERB and I don't really want to come back to work right now. So I want to see how we can tighten that up. For example, I would like you to explain how the recent changes, which are good changes to CERB, such as allowing people to earn up to $1,000 and continue receiving the benefit, and our government's proposed employee top up for essential workers will help ensure that the CERB does not disincentivize work. Thank you, Minister.
I thank you for your question and agree with you that the implementation and delivery of this massive benefit in such a timely and efficient way is a testament really to the hard work of our public servants, and I'm so proud of how they're delivering for fellow Canadians. We know that the CERB, in giving a monthly payment of $2,000, has had the unintended consequences, to your point, of disincentivizing work in some circumstances. And we have tried, and you mentioned the two examples I was going to give, so I'll elaborate on them, to incentivize working or being able to continue working by adding, and I would say in response to a lot of what was raised by opposition and Canadians and organizations and employers, by allowing Canadians to earn up to $1,000 and still be in receipt of the CERB means that $1,000 in most provinces is about, I think, if my math is correct, about a half a time position. So at minimum wage, so allowing people to still work and earn $1,000. And remember that $1,000 is flexible. It's not tied to number of hours or what you earn. You can earn it in a day. You can earn it through a contract. You can earn it by working a certain number of hours. And by recognizing at the same time, on the other end of that, in doing that $1,000 limit, we also need to ensure that people who are working very hard, and this would include most people in essential services, aren't getting and earning less by working full time than someone who is receiving the $2,000 on CERB and earning the $1,000 max. So that was the reason behind our essential workers top up. So that's why we're working with provinces to deliver an employment income top up for essential workers making under a certain amount of money.
Thank you, Minister, for the question. Time's precious, so I'm going to go right into my next question. It's with respect to disability and the Disability Advisory Group. There are some groups of Canadians that will be disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. And I'm pleased is that our government is taking significant steps to help vulnerable persons during these difficult times. For some persons with disabilities, their underlying medical conditions put them at greater risk. In addition, many still face discrimination and barriers in accessing information, social services, and healthcare. For others, the need for self-isolation and physical distancing create additional challenges. Can you tell this committee to what steps our government is taking to support Canadians with disabilities during this incredibly challenging time for them? Thank you.
A short answer, if you could, Minister.
Yes. So we established our Disability Advisory Committee. We issued a statement reassuring everyone of their right to equal access to health care. We are working with PT ministers responsible for disability. My colleague, the Minister of Health, and I have written a letter to PT health ministers outlining some of the issues being faced by people with disabilities in our healthcare systems. You'll see in our student measures, we have an increase to the student benefit for students with disabilities. We know the GST credit will disproportionately favor people with disabilities. We are doing a lot, and we're trying to put a disability lens on everything we do to make sure that this group of Canadians is included and sees themselves in our response.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Mr. Long. Madame Chabot, pour 6 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
Bonjour, Madame la Ministre.
Hello, Madam Minister, and thank you for being here. You talked about the CERB, but I'm more interested in the Canada Summer Jobs Program. Now, this program was delayed. The deadline was extended, and that was a good thing, and we're happy that the program will go ahead. We heard you say that the number of jobs will go up to 76,000. So 76,000 jobs, and yet we have 40,000 jobs which we have trouble filling. So how are you going to match people with the jobs? If I understand your question, and I apologize if I have not understood it, the Canada Summer Jobs Program usually creates 70,000 jobs for students in Canada. Yesterday, we announced an additional investment into this program. So we will create a second tranche of jobs. So an additional 76,000 jobs for young Canadians. So we are using these programs for youth, and we are extending them, we're expanding them to make sure that Canadian youth have jobs, which will give them the work and experience they need to move forward in their lives. And we know that so many young people don't know what they will end up doing this summer. So we're telling students, we're telling Canadian youth, we're supporting them. And we are there to help them. And in combination with the student benefit, we are going to help them get the experience which they will need this summer. Madam Minister, may I continue, Mr. Chairman? Yes, please go ahead, says the Minister. Briefly, I have to say that everything we've gone through so far with regard to the Summer Jobs Program, without the additional 76,000 jobs, well, even under the old program, it's been extremely hard to match students with positions. And the problem is each MP had the same budget to establish priorities. And again, our budgets have not increased to help match students with these jobs. So I'm just wondering where we will find these 76,000 additional jobs and how will they be funded? Thank you for the question. certainly we've turned to MPs and have asked them how to help deploy these student summer jobs. And we are aiming to create these jobs in essential services. So we have the Work Integrated Learning Program. Graham, are there other programs for youth I've not mentioned? Yes. There is one program which MPs have done a great job on because some employers were not eligible for the existing programs. So we have new programs to help place young people in jobs which have also involved other departments. So we're trying to invest another $50 million to help place students in the healthcare sector, in the agricultural sector, so that students can get work experience with Canadian businesses. So again, that is a separate program from the one you've mentioned. And so some of these programs are delivered by other departments. $50 million, so an additional amount for jobs created for young people in the health and agricultural sectors. Now, these are areas of provincial jurisdiction. As you know, agricultural work is so essential to this country. We have temporary foreign workers who businesses are still waiting for. In Quebec, the provincial government has launched a program has called on young people to work in the agricultural sector. I'm asking you whether tourism is part of the jobs which will fall under the $50 million. So do you think that the approach the government is taking will work, or will it stand in the way of the provinces? Well, this is actually exactly why we are working with the provinces and territories on the essential worker wage boost, because we want the provinces to decide what is an essential sector, where students should be directed to. And I know that agriculture is essential for Quebec.
Chabot.
Merci.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Minister. I appreciate the work that's being done with CERB. It remains, though, from the NDP's perspective, we believe that it would be far greater if the government had gone forward with a universal direct payment, and therefore we're not in a complicated situation where there's so many people who are falling through the gaps and who are stuck in a situation where they cannot get access to support in a dire situation. With that being said, I do have a question for you. For people who do not qualify right now, as it stands, based on the current eligibility rules for CERB, it would appear that single parents who are no longer receiving vital spousal or child support payments due to the ex-partner's income being affected by COVID-19 are not eligible. And this leaves single parents scrambling without funds. And of course, the children are without the support that they need. So my question is, will you allow for people who are receiving spousal or child maintenance be eligible to receive CERB and to allow for this change to take place?
Well, thank you for that question. And it's something I've been thinking a lot about as we've been looking at groups and looking at particular vulnerable groups. And I know that the group of women, and I say that knowing that women are disproportionately in this situation that you're talking about, while they would have received, most likely because of low income, the goods and services tax additional credit that we got, and while they are going to be receiving additional increase to the Canada Child Benefit per child, that falls short of replacing income that they would have got through spousal support payments. And I am looking into this, although spousal support payments aren't technically considered employment income, but it is something I'm turning my mind to because of the particular vulnerabilities of this group.
Well, thank you, Minister. I hope that changes will be made because as it stands right now, I have a number of constituents who are in this dire situation. And not only are the people receiving or who are supposed to receive spousal or child maintenance are in a desperate situation. In fact, the partner who wants to ensure that, their ex-spouse and children are provided support are equally anxious because they are no longer in a position to provide that maintenance. And so I hope that we will hear some good news. I'd be happy to work with your office to address this issue, Minister. I'd like to move on to another area. And so that is for migrant workers and undocumented workers. We have a situation where now with COVID-19, many people's work permits have expired and they are unable to have it processed and addressed through IRCC in a timely fashion. And so consequently, they're not eligible for CERB because you have to have a SIN number, a valid SIN number, in order to be eligible. So my question then is, will your government look at providing CERB to those with an expired SIN number and so that they can get the critical support that they need during this time? And for the undocumented workers, the people that are here in Canada, if they're forced to go out to work in an unsafe environment and therefore not flattening the curve, not engaging in social distancing and so on, that creates all kinds of problems for all of us. And the government can address that issue with their workers, with their ITN. And so therefore you can be sure that they are people who are supposed to be working and they actually have an ITN number. And so is that something that your government can address?
I'd certainly like to follow up with you on that particular, especially the second part of your question. What I can say, and as you're well aware, is that the way CERB eligibility works is you have to have a valid social insurance number. And it seems it's troubling me, and I've been trying to figure out a way that because of another system in government having backlogs, i.e. people aren't getting their social insurance number renewed or up to date, that then this might preclude eligibility in this case. So I'm working with IRCC colleagues on that. I don't know, Graham, if you have an update, because I know we were looking into what we could do in that situation.
We'll follow up, Minister.
Yeah, sorry, Ms. Kwan, I'm not evading your question. I just want to make sure we have the most up-to-date information for you.
Well, I'll be happy.
I'm also sorry, Ms. Kwan, you're out of time. You finish that comment, go ahead.
All right. I'd be happy to work with your officials, Minister, on this issue. And a quick fix for that is to simply allow for the people with the expired SIN to collect CERB.
Thank you, Ms. Kwan. Next, back to the Conservatives for 5 minutes. Mr. Albus again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you again, Minister, for being here today. Minister, following up from my earlier line of questioning, I asked specifically the CARB, which your officials have said right now about 1/3 of labor force is receiving. Did the CARB go through a gender-based analysis plus analysis?
We have been looking at every measure to see how it disproportionately impacts a number of groups, including women and girls. I guess I'm waffling a bit by saying that everything has gone through so quickly that I'd like to make sure that the rigor was put to it, but perhaps, Graham, you could answer for us.
Well, I'd actually like to ask you a follow-up question on what you just said, Minister. Would you be willing, if a gender-based analysis was done, would you please submit it to this committee as well as to the status of women?
Yes, absolutely. I'll see what information we have for you.
The next question I have is, Minister, you said you clearly believe that you have the authority to make a regulatory workaround despite what the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit Act says in regards to eligibility, as in ceases to have worked because of COVID-19. Now, you say you have a legal opinion. Are you prepared to share this legal opinion with this committee as well as the Joint Standing Committee of the Scrutiny of Regulations? Yes or no?
I think I'll have to get back to you on the process side of that. I know that we have got advice from
you're
Justice.
Confident in it, Minister.
Can I finish my question? This is a very important answer. We got a legal advice from Justice that by taking a broad interpretation of the first emergency legislation that we could make this regulatory change. But I don't know. I need to figure that out. I apologize.
If it's good enough for your government, Minister, I would hope it would be good enough for this committee. So I do hope you will commit to doing that. Okay, I'll ask you at the end of that to see if you've changed your mind. Mm-hmm. So in this announcement, I'm going back to what you had originally talked about, seasonal workers. Your government said that seasonal workers would not be covered by the CERB, except that really wasn't the case. Instead, what you did was extend CERB to people whose EI has run out. Now, this covers many seasonal workers, but I've heard from countless seasonal workers who are not EI eligible, but believe they are CRB eligible. Many have applied believing themselves qualified. Why did you state seasonal workers are not eligible when they are not?
The eligibility criteria are if you made $5,000 in the past year and you've stopped working or you've earned under $1,000. The EI seasonal worker piece has to do with people whose claims have been exhausted or ended since, I think, December 29th or January 1st. That's a specific seasonal workers are a specific subset of EI exhaustees. I believe, I apologize, I'm not sure the exact reference you're making, but I think I was talking to people in seasonal jobs. So somebody who would as a matter of course, go back to a specific seasonal job, as opposed to the EI subset of seasonal workers.
Minister, this is a real problem with the government not being clear on these things, and you have an opportunity to magnify, your voice, your government's voice to all members of Parliament. So I'd expect you to be clear when these things are announced, particularly when it's in front of a microphone. Minister, in the House, both the Prime Minister and the Minister of Families stated that students would be eligible for the CERB as long as they made $5,000 in the last year. What they neglected to say, exactly what you referenced, was those students also needed to lose their job due to COVID-19. Now, we know that there are students who heard those words and applied for the benefit thinking themselves eligible. What will you do to address the students who have mistakenly applied after hearing the Prime Minister's statement and that clearly should fall under the CESB and not the CERB?
Well, first of all, if people applied for the CERB in good faith, there's no significant consequence except they may be asked at some point to pay that money back. If they are eligible for the CESB, they can apply for that, and we will work with them to see what benefit stream they should have been in. But to be clear, we know that 45 or 43% of students were working in February, and we anticipated a number of students being eligible for the CERB going into the March 15th, April 1st timeline. So it doesn't surprise me. A lot of students actually did lose their job because of COVID-19.
So, Minister, by saying this, are you not telling people that they should just simply apply and roll the dice when it comes to whether or not they'll get to keep it? Because right now you're telling students that they only qualify for $1,250, or if they have dependents or disability, $1,750. So are you not, by saying this right now in that kind of way, just encouraging people to roll the dice?
Just a short answer, Minister. We're out of time.
I am expecting Canadians to be honest. I am expecting Canadian students in particular to understand that as part of a broader package of measures we've put in place for them, which includes an income support piece, but also access to increased grant support, access to a service bursary for volunteer or community service. I expect Canadians to answer honestly, and they will be.
You have a responsibility
thank you,
to
Mr.
communicate this
Albus.
clearly with the Canadian public.
Mr. Turnbull, please, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to the Minister Qualtrough for being on the call today. I really appreciate the work that you and your department are doing, and I know that there's a real commitment to ensuring that all vulnerable groups are assisted at this time. I know that the CERB, when it was rolled out, was, I think we prioritized speed. And I think my constituents in particular expressed a lot of gratitude for how quickly they applied and were able to get checks. I've never seen government move so fast, so I'm significantly impressed by that. I know that also just personally for me, being a relatively new MP in the Liberal caucus, I know that our members have all advocated for small changes to essentially accommodate other people within these measures, and that those responses have been made. So thank you for all of that work that you and your team have done. I have a couple of questions. I want to go back to the disabilities. I have numerous constituents that have expressed concerns who have disabilities. They've expressed concerns that their benefits might be clawed back from provincial and territorial benefits, in particular if they, even though they qualify for the CERB. I just wondered whether the Disability Advisory Group will be working on that, and if you could give us an update on how the work with provinces and territories might be unfolding.
Well, thank you for that question. It's something I'm personally very seized with and have raised with my PT colleagues, so my provincial, territorial, and ministerial colleagues, and have written to them as recently as either yesterday or the day before on this specific issue. The Disability Advisory Committee has raised concerns that you have situations in many provinces where entitlement to disability support benefits allows a certain income threshold, and that certain income threshold may be beyond the $5,000 that we require for CERB. So somebody may be entitled to both their provincial disability supports and eligible for CERB because they lost that employment income. Some provinces, like British Columbia, have waived any kind of clawback so that people can get both of these kinds of benefits. Other provinces have decided to claw it back at a 50% rate, and other provinces are clawing it back entirely. So this is a concern because the treatment's different across the country, but that's the reality of a federation. And I'm raising it, we're raising it at a bunch of different levels, and we're working on some resolution with PT governments to ensure that the most money possible gets directly in the hands of people who need it.
That's great, and that's really good news for me to hear. I want to also ask you about Canada Summer Jobs. We know how important that program has been for playing a vital role in supporting young people in getting employment. I know that there were lots of requests for updating that program and some added flexibility, specifically around essential services in communities and connecting those young people to jobs with community groups and essential services. Could you give us an update on the recent measures that have essentially made that program more flexible at this time?
Thank you. So the world didn't look the way it looks today when the first intake happened for Canada Summer Jobs back in January. Employers expressed interest in having young people work for them, and now they may or not be able to offer that experience. And some employers didn't ask for young people who could really benefit now from having people, whether it be pop-up groups that are providing essential services in community or organizations that ask for one person but could really need two. And so we tried to amend the Canada Summer Jobs program to respond to the reality on the ground for communities. And we changed some of the criteria. So, for example, before private and public sector jobs were supported at 50% of the salary, now they're supported at 100% like they were for nonprofits. We're allowing part-time work, whereas before it was full-time. We've extended the period during which students can work. So it was until the end of the summer. Now it's until the end of next February. We've done a number of things to help communities and give employers the flexibility, and also give MPs a chance to really help us understand what's going on in their communities.
Thank you, Mr. Turnbull. Thank you, Minister. Back to the Conservatives for 5 minutes. Mr. Albus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, Raquel Dancho would like to go if possible.
Ms. Dancho, please.
Yes, thank you. Hello, Minister. Thank you for being here today on the call.
Oh, you got to unmute yourself.
Oh,
I can hear.
You can hear me?
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Minister. Thank you for being here, Minister. I was intrigued by your comments in your government's news release regarding the $9 billion of student subsidies the Prime Minister announced a few days ago. You had said, and regarding the supports for students, you had said that it is a reflection of the central role students play in ensuring that Canada emerges from these challenges stronger than ever. I was personally very encouraged to hear your belief in the student population to contribute to this response effort. And I was undergrad not too long ago, and I can tell you I certainly would have appreciated the opportunity to contribute to this relief effort. I was also appreciative to see in the media recently that you did acknowledge that the agriculture and agri-food sectors are experiencing significant employment shortages, which, as I'm sure you know, threaten the food security of our country, which I'm sure your constituents, my constituents, everyone's on this call's constituents have told us they're alarmed about the shortage of food on the shelves and the increase of prices. And we know how this ties into labor shortages on farms. So I'm also sure you'd heard about the Conservative proposal to create a Canada Summer Jobs program specifically for agriculture to mobilize our most healthiest, able-bodied young people to go work on farms and fill these critical shortages. And, further in your quote, you had also said that your plan is to, quote, provide Canadians and businesses in all sectors with the help they need to get through the current challenges and position them for success as we emerge from the crisis. So with that being said, it seems like a very reasonable response, and you strike me as a very reasonable person, that you would be supportive of our program that we announced, the initiative that we announced and would like to see from your government. Can you comment whether you will be supporting that?
Well, thank you for your question and your thoughtfulness. I draw your attention first to a campaign we launched a couple of days ago called Step Up to the Plate, Feed Canada. And it's directing young people to employment opportunities in agriculture. And we've also tried to get the message out to MPs that Canada Summer Jobs are, of course, open to farms and other agriculture sector employers. We also have a program that's being enhanced with Agriculture Canada to directly place young people in agri-food and agriculture sector jobs. So as much as I absolutely share the intent of your program, I'm not sure we need a separate CSJ stream to meet that objective.
No, and I appreciate the former announcements you made. We're not hearing from farmers that that's going to be enough to meet the needs that they require to secure our supply food chain. But I did want to mention, though, my concern with the program that you did announce, providing students with $1,250. I know that that's going to be critical for many students, but we know in reality that may incentivize students not to go out and seek opportunities. And I believe, and I think you would agree, that your government needs to be doing everything that they possibly can to motivate our youngest, our best, and our brightest to get out there and contribute, much like you said in your quote. So it would seem like a normal conclusion to think that if you can focus a lot of your attention and your government's, the cabinet decisions on getting these students to work in agriculture, more so than you're already doing, so that we start hearing positive feedback from farmers, that would be incredibly helpful and just really make straightforward sense.
I hear you. Our youth do definitely want to contribute and are interested in serving and interested in working. And I take your advice and I will take it back to the cabinet table.
Great. And if I have a few minutes left, Chair, how many minutes do I have? I'll just keep going. Minister, I did just want to flag.
You have a minute and a half.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. Yeah, thanks. Minister, I just wanted to flag with you earlier, I had mentioned to your officials that I'd had a very unfortunate experience with your parliamentary secretary's call yesterday about the $9 billion supports. I'd been on the call for an hour and he had been informed ahead of time that I was going to be asking questions, and yet my NDP and Green colleagues were able to ask 2 to 3 questions each. Even a staffer was asked a couple questions several times, and yet they did not call on the Conservatives. And that was the second call like that that's been hosted by your parliamentary secretary where I have not been called on for questions. And I've written you several letters and with Dan Albus, and we haven't heard back from you. So I did appreciate the apology from your colleague Adam Vaughan, but I just really wanted you to be aware that it's quite alarming for me as the official critic for youth for all Canadians that I've been really unable until right now to ask you any personal questions or to ask your department parliamentary secretary any questions. So I just want to make sure you're aware that there's been a disappointing response for us to have the opportunity to ask those questions as Conservatives.
Well, thank you for letting me know. I apologize if that was your experience, and I'll make sure it doesn't happen again.
Thank you very much, Minister. All the best.
Thank you, Ms. Doncho. Next, back to the Liberals, Mr. Vaughan for 5 minutes, please. Unmute your mic there, Adam.
Sorry about that. If you could just tell me when there's 2 minutes left, I'd like to share my time with a member of the Green Party to make sure that their perspective is added to our conversation today.
Will do.
Thanks. To the Minister, just a quick yes or no on a couple of questions. Just to confirm, your department and your ministry is working on maternity-paternity fixes to CERB, working on how to accommodate international students. There's work underway to address some of the deficiencies that seniors are facing. The issue about child maintenance and spouses who are relying on that, who have lost it, to address that. And as well, there's some tweaks still to come from workers in the seasonal industries. These are all ongoing projects that the department has been working on for a number of days, if not weeks now.
Yes, and yes.
Thank you. One more yes there. The second question is that is work already underway in terms of structuring a recovery to the pandemic?
So the answer to that is yes, and it has been since the beginning, because we have tried to put in place measures that will best position us as a country to, post public health crisis, to come out of the economic crisis as well, equally as quickly. So, a lot of the measures we've done have been targeted at setting businesses up, individuals up, to be best positioned to recover as quickly as possible.
Would it be helpful for this committee to actually start to think about those recovery steps as well, so we get ahead of the curve as opposed to respond to legislation in real time? I
think the more brains we put on this, the better. So absolutely.
And the stackability of the benefits, which provinces, I respect the fact that there are provincial jurisdictions here, but are we working with the provinces to make sure that the benefits we put on the table are stackable with existing provincial benefits?
Yeah, as I said, we sure are. We've had different levels of success, and different provinces are taking different actions. And BC, as I said, is just waiving it, and it's completely stackable. Ontario, on the other hand, is doing a 50% clawback, and I understand they're redirecting the money they're clawing back into other income support measures for people who are on other types of support that aren't necessarily eligible for CERB. So different provinces are taking different approaches.
And finally, Indigenous youth and other equity-seeking groups, in particular the Black and African Canadian communities, often they get pushed out of the way so that stronger equity groups get to the front of the line. What are we doing to make sure that those who often are most marginalized don't get displaced as other equity-seeking groups use their power to get to the front of the line, or their experience with programs to get to the front of the line?
We have many voices around our table, and yours is one of them, but certainly at Cabinet, who regularly ensure that these perspectives are, whether it's we need desegregated data as we look to see who's being impacted by this crisis, or we've got to see how the GST credit impacts different groups of Canadians. But there's been a concerted effort, as has been the case for years in our government, to turn our minds to different subsets and different kind of intersectional realities within the population. You're not just someone with a disability, you're someone who is a woman with a disability. So we're really mindful of this. I don't know if there's anything particular the department would like to add on. Sorry, go ahead.
Actually, I've got limited time. So, and just lastly, on the Canada Summer Jobs issue, I recognize that in rural Canada, the issue is...
You're inside of 2 minutes to go, Mr. Vaughan. You asked me to remind you.
Okay, I'll leave that comment for another day then. I'll submit to the Green Party.
Go ahead, Mr. Manley. You got about a minute and a half. And welcome.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, Adam. I'm wondering, Minister, if there's some flexibility that could be built into this program for the CERB. I have a couple of constituents. One who went on medical leave last year for surgery, spent 8 months off of work, so she didn't make $5,000 last year, but then came back to work and lost her work because of the COVID-19. I have another person who left their job because their father had congenital heart failure. And so she left her job to be able to take care of her father. And she was just getting ready to start work again, but because she had quit her job to help her dad, she's not eligible to the CERB either. So I'm wondering if there's some kind of flexibility that can be built into the system so these different circumstances could be taken into consideration for people.
Those are two very specific fact patterns, and my heart goes out in particular to the second one. And let me see if I can get back to you with specific answers on those two fact patterns. But, you know, to some extent, the legislation that created this benefit has the parameters that it does. I'm not sure the response will be positive, but let me see moving forward what I can do with those particular kinds of situations.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Mr. Manley. Now for Madame Chabot pour 2 minutes et demie. Madame Chabot.
Thank you. I would like to come back on the new programs that were announced for students. The Canada Emergency Student Benefit, namely. I don't know if you've gotten certain comments regarding new jobs that were announced in different sectors of the economy. Even if we do help students, and if that help was beneficial to them, how will we reconcile this new benefit with the employment needs of students? In other words, will jobs still be paid at minimum wage, and will these jobs still be interesting for students with all these programs in place? Will we end up with the opposite situation to the situation that we wanted to have? So we worked very closely with student organizations in order to put in place these measures and these benefits. And so they asked us help in the forms of a benefit, but also help for grants and job creation, because young people want to work, they want to be useful. This is why we announced different programs yesterday, this package of measures. And so it's not only the benefit. If we only had announced the Canada Emergency Student Benefit, then that was probably disincentivize students from working minimum wage jobs, but we also tried to create opportunities, jobs. If young people can't work, they still want to be of service, and this is why we created the Canada Student Service Grant. If young people are volunteers during the summer, then at the end of the summer, they will be able to receive a $1,000, $3,000, or $5,000 grant from the government to compensate them for their volunteer work. I think it's going to be really important to have all the details, because we are worried that these minimum wage jobs will not be filled. So when we talk of coordinating with provinces and territories, I think that these programs should seek to improve the current job situation in Canada and not create unintended negative consequences. Yes, I completely agree with you. One last question very quickly. No, Ms. Chabot, I'm sorry. This is the end of your time. I'm sorry. Oh, don't be sorry, Mr. Chair.
For 2.5 minutes.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Sure can.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Minister, I just want to point out first off on the Canada Summers Job Program, while there are changes to address the COVID-19 crisis and that organizations could now have 100% of the funding for the positions. But for all of our constituencies, the global funding for all of our ridings, that amount has not increased. And so in my riding of Vancouver East, even in the best of times, more than half of the organizations are recommended for funding, but there's no money available to support their work during the summer in support of students. In this instance, only about a third of the organizations may be able to get some resources. The vast majority of them would not. So I hope that you will look at that issue and to ensure that that there's actually an increase in budget in order to realize the actual work for the students on the ground. The other issue that I want to bring up, Minister, is that for the student program that was just announced, the Prime Minister actually used the deadline of December as the drop dead date of when people graduate in order to qualify. I also have a constituent who wrote immediately. She graduated in November as opposed to December of 2019, and now she is out. And so, there are these nuanced situations, and that is hugely problematic. And I hope that there can be flexibility with respect to that. And perhaps I can get a quick response from you, Minister.
Yeah, thank you. So let's work together on that flexibility. The benefit itself will be legislated, so there's an opportunity to build flexibilities into a number of these the decisions. But I will say that the biggest challenge for a lot of us on all these programs has been the reality of having to set thresholds. When you put a line in the sand, someone's on one side of it and someone's on the other side of it, and trying to quickly deliver a program with nuance or graduated complexities becomes tough, but I do hear you, and we can certainly work together on making it as flexible as possible in the time we have.
Yeah, and just on that then, Minister, wouldn't it make more sense to go with a universal direct payment? Because then you won't have these nuanced problems for all of the programs. And that would make it so much easier for your officials, for the government, and most important of all, make it so much better for the people who are in need. So I'd be happy to work with you in light of the situation that we're faced with. Likewise, Canadians who are overseas, that are abroad, they do not have access to this program because they have to actually be here in Canada. But if they are trying to continue their studies and they're abroad, they will not be able to get the support. And when they're abroad, they may well be in a situation where they cannot get employment because of COVID-19. So I just want to bring that to your attention as well.
Thank you, Ms. Kwan. Thank you. We are.
Would you like me to respond, or should I?
If you can, very quickly, Minister.
Yeah, I just want to highlight on that last particular issue, we hear you, and we're looking at building the flexibility for students who are Canadian citizens or permanent residents and who are abroad to still have access to it this summer.
Thank you very much, Minister, and to all of my colleagues, thank you for being so respectful of the clock that we were able to get two full rounds in, which was our goal. Minister, and to your officials, thank you very much for making yourself available really as soon as this process got up and running. Very much appreciate that. To all of my colleagues, we're about to adjourn. We do not yet have confirmation of when we will be meeting again because 3 more committees have been added to the roster, which is quite a drain on the parliamentary resources. The last tentative schedule I saw had us meeting Wednesday, but please don't take that as gospel. I would ask each of you to think about the future conduct of business to make sure that you communicate among yourselves, because in advance of any meeting, I do propose an informal telephone conference with the committee chairs, or with the vice chairs, representatives from the NDP and the Bloc, to plan our next course of business. And so if you could give that some thought, then we could be hopefully as efficient in our next meetings as we have been in this one. And unless there is anything further, I see Ms. Cusey's hand up. Ms. Cusey, I recognize you.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to indicate that unanimous consent was not received for Mr. Manley to be subbed in we certainly recognize him as a individual from a party which does not have official status within the House. And if he is going to be given the consideration to be put on standby, then we would also ask for other independent members of Parliament to be given that consideration as well. And certainly, while I recognize that these virtual meetings are not conventional, that we should, as closely as possible, follow the conventions which we meet when we meet in person. And this, of course, would include the unanimous consent and the subbing in. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cusey. Ms. Kwan, on this point?
Thank you. On this point, from the NDP's perspective, if an independent member, such as the Green Party in this instance, is able to share time with another committee member, we don't actually have a problem with that. And so I'll just leave it at that. But I do have a separate point, though, if I may, Mr. Chair. During the committee meeting, I did ask officials when they were before us to provide contact information for MPs to directly follow up with them on individual cases. They said that that's something that they would do. So I wonder if you can undertake to get that information from the officials and to share it with all the committee members.
Thank you, Ms. Kwan. Mr. Turnbull and then Mr. Albus.
I just wanted to say my understanding is that unanimous consent is not required for MPs to give up their time. I think it's up to each individual MP as to whether they choose voluntarily to give up a portion of their time, and that's what I understood happened today. Could someone maybe just clarify that? I don't know if that's a question for the clerk, just to clarify.
Okay, does the clerk care to respond to that? And then we're going to go to Mr. Albus and Mr. Vaughan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Normally, yes, the time belongs to the member, and the member can share his or her time with another member if he or she wishes to do so, yes. Mr.
Albus?
Yeah, my point just would be, Mr. Chair, is that there are a number of independents that may want to come on different committees, and I think it's just proper to ask for unanimous consent, because if someone is not subbed in, I have no issue, like Raquel Dancho subbed in today. We followed through the proper process, and from every meeting that I've been at, the chair at the beginning usually just asks, do we have unanimous consent to be able to have a member who is not an official member of the committee to speak. To me, that's just a good thing for us to ensure, because quite honestly, if it becomes where several different independent members want to come in, then we have to start drawing a line on these things. And so I just would hope that you would just canvass people and seek that consent to have someone who is not subbed in, who may be an associate member just by virtue of being a member of Parliament, can participate if the committee wills it.
Mr. Vaughan?
Yeah, just on the point of getting direct numbers to MPs to troubleshoot constituency issues, I hope this doesn't mean we're going to be distributing the number for deputy ministers and heads of Crown corporations. There are some issues there that we have to be respectful of the Privy Council and governmental rules around. But I do support, of course, getting that mechanism in place. I would also suggest, though, that for some of these things, for example, for CMHC, just as I can't call up the CBC and ask about what story they're running tonight, I can't call up CMHC even as a parliamentary secretary and say, where is Grant A or where is Grant B, because they're a Crown corporation and there's legal requirements as to how we approach Crown corporations. So if we could please, and I totally respect the concerns that's been raised around the critics' calls and the way in which parliamentary secretaries respond. Totally understand that and totally support getting good information as quickly as possible back and forth. That's our job as parliamentary secretaries. But if you could forward some of those calls to the deputy ministers or Crown corporations through the parliamentary secretary, we can then push it through the cabinet process to get you as quick and as direct a response as possible. It's just that we have, even as liberal members of Parliament, have rules we have to live by, and we need to respect those rules, especially at times like this.
Mr. Turnbull?
I just wanted to reiterate that my understanding is that the rules stipulate that independents are welcome to join meetings and any of the members can share their time. So certainly the Conservative Party is welcome to share their time with any other members that join. I do also want to point out that other committees have adopted this practice that the Green Party has sat in. Elizabeth May has been in on every PROC meeting so far since that committee reconvened, and members have chose to share their time. I think all of us at this time want every member of Parliament to have an equal voice, and that is, part of parliamentary privilege. Thank you.
Ms. Kwan?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just again on this point as well, in the previous Parliament, we've had situations where I have shared my time, as an example, with the block member who's not an official member of the committee, and so I do believe that it will be up to committee members if they wish to share time with another member for us to facilitate that. I do think that is important to ensure that different people have the opportunity to speak, and if there are members who is willing to share time with them. With that being said, on the question around information, I think we all heard from the committee when I asked the question to the officials and to provide the contact information. So of course that would be up to the official's office to provide what contact number they would provide to MP offices. And I think that the point is this: the issues that I think we're raising is not necessarily policy decisions that should go to a parliamentary secretary or a minister and so on, but rather the logistics of the application of the program and the problems that we experience as an MP with our constituents. Our constituents have a multitude of issues, and trying to navigate the situation, we often actually don't have that information, and they are in a gray area in terms of trying to have that resolution. Case in point, when I raised the example of my constituents having had to quit their job because of various situations, and the response was to say, well, there's a appeal process. Be that as it may, but as it stands right now, those individuals are not getting the support that they need. And so for having an official look into that situation, I think would help out the constituents greatly. And so that is my point, Mr. Chair. So I hope that we can endeavor to get that information, and not just for this committee. I think that would be useful for all 338 members of Parliament, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Kwan. Mr. Dong, please.
Thank you, Chair. I have 2 points to raise. First of all, I want to recognize that we are in the middle of COVID-19, which is a world pandemic and something that nobody in our generation has experienced. So I think we are, given the seriousness of the event, I have to say that I've been receiving, and I think I heard from other colleagues that a reasonable amount of information. And I just want to get on the record and appreciate the fact that the government has done a good job in on a daily basis providing information about all these new programs that they introduced in the last few weeks. My second point is that I want to congratulate all members of the committee. We actually did it, our first virtual Zoom meeting as a committee. A lot of thanks, and I think I want to recognize all the work the clerks and the staff and the chair you have done to make this a very, very smooth operation today. And with
I don't know, we're now over time, Mr. Dong. You might want to go easy on that.
But thank you very much, and to the clerks and the staff for facilitating this. Thank you,
Madame Chabot.
J'ai été rebaptisée.
Oh, sorry. I thought that the meeting was over, but all I wanted to do now is to thank the interpreters, and I wanted to thank the clerk, and I would also like to thank the technicians who have made this meeting possible. We asked questions of the minister, and she said that she's looking into some of those issues, but unless I was mistaken, Mr. Chairman, can't we receive written answers to some of our questions? So when the minister was unable to answer, perhaps it might be a good idea for us to get written responses once they are available. Now, when it comes to everyone's speaking turn, our Green colleague, I saw someone had shared their time with him. I thought that time would be made for our colleague from the Green Party. Regardless, if everybody agrees, and I think we do need unanimous consent, so we'll have to perhaps give more thought to the fact that speaking time is not fairly distributed by party. So perhaps we can think about that a little more. We know that Conservatives have more speaking time than the Bloc and the NDP. We want the Green Party to speak as well. Now, as for associate members of a committee or substitute members, I think each party can decide for itself. I thought that if we would find a substitute, or if you wanted to share our time, that would have to go through the clerk. In any case, thank you so much. I'm good for today, and I'll see you at our next meeting.
This is on the speakers list, and just a reminder, folks, we're now probably pressing the patience and goodwill of the House of Commons folks who need to go through this exercise on 3 occasions today. But Mr. Viss, the floor is yours.
Can you hear me, Chair?
Yes, I can.
I'd like to thank everyone for a very well-run meeting. My question is, I'll just start with a quick comment. I appreciated all the questions I heard today regarding the eligibility of the programs and how we're responding to the immediate needs of Canadians. But I would be remiss if I didn't raise a point that we have also as Parliament agreed to spending basically more money almost ever in the history of Canada at a single point in time. And I was wondering if we could have, if it's the will of the committee, if we could get some preliminary numbers from the department about how public dollars are being allocated through the respective departments our committee oversees, and if that information might be available to us for further scrutiny moving forward in this committee process. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Viss. Thank you to everyone. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, witnesses. Thank you, colleagues. The vice chairs can expect a call fairly soon once we know what the path forward looks like. But for now, we're past time, and I would therefore declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you so much.